三界学堂所谓修南老，讲究八度大难加所知，大概是所几个错能见着拉根这三界诸不说，三界学堂所谓修南老，讲究八度大难加所知，大概是所几个错能见着拉根这三界诸不说，三界学堂所谓修南老。大概情所给别错那个，找哪看就三件出发了，就刚给投资你说呢，到我当街旁边就是当培训呢，正常吧，果断的拉下子，但开始这个多，还是用意思啊，哈哈哈哈，嗯这个是呀，当然俺是国足的意思是吧？
So we start now.
Go ahead, all is fine.
嗯，딱俺说가리 세계 열에 쓰라도 뭐 간에 죽으래 쓰라도 근데 레게 군웅 세지가네 고주 용거야레스 대제 쟤는 다 순주 소디나래 쇼랑 순주 소디나래서 순주 소디나데 달라 세체 그래 다 레시 군웅게 캐바단데 토네 레섬 차워시 주지 대시바 라 레기 시바 시베 시바 쓰다 다도 쓰거다 다 레스 라윈데 나라저 니리니리게 자와 같이 제바들라 레스라고요 다 레스라도 근데 레스를 그냥 타는 거 쉬운 사람마다면 레스에 가인스는 소소게 류기 자와 같이기도 나게 아 가르치기도 대 탐제 레스라고 더 레스 대내가 없어 레스 잡았으라고 야래 레스 잡았다 레가 잡았다 되니까 된 잡으라고 그러죠 다 된다 근데 인도 다 가인스나 단단한 급진데 가르치기 알았으나 미기웰레당 기웰레 스실레니 실체 미기웰레 스라데라 미기와데라 드니 미기와 하신 첨부 인den게 드니 미기와 줄레스 개와된 럽 첨부 인den게 나랑 3회 죽투에 예den게 개와 줄레스네 미기와 줄초로 침바이는 나랑서 미출은 가워 미출은 거로 도샤사두고 봐준다 이 상계기 최내 셰베 계제 말에 지단에 알아서 미기워 주세这个 초를 심바이나 미기워 주디 당보 속셔봐 속셔베 나로네 미세바스 차되게 하래 다드니 마침바 렘바스라데 고마고 받을 차게 하래 대야 고마 침부고 받아고 차게 하래 드니 로임 제바스라데 셰라 쩨와 따네 포무수인바이네 편수 쩨와 땅 들을 직시 rangi sazan tang nya deba la zuma chabja ten ramara la ga tuja che shorba ten de ge to ne lu ge le sum shira le tuja sum di ngara su jizo na la le sa cha kawa yin da lungwa kawa yin da la ga de cho su shina tuja zige da tuja yin ba ta cho da cha zan de la lu ge le chenbo sum shira ta de ge gan de la 가르치게 열었으라도 나기 준셔봐. 대야 준신보셔봐. 대는 참아. 된 주신 신보자봐. 준 참아. 치숙세대. 대는 배 치숙 하장 두자라야 되네. 나켈스라도 대매게 건주 먼저 저 셔대 소리. 보다 되네. 나게 시스. 다 되게래 가인스 디게 참아 도자 짠냐래. 난 자와 년바 짠냐래. 제가 미기윌레 슬라브레 미기윌레 듄스샤브레 미기윌레 듄부디 꿀롱 그 뉴모델라 가르쳐 버렸을라데 낙습슬라데 도샤가 차도실라데 도샤스라 단다간데 도샤데 생기데 소소라 건데 대란 도샤 소데라
Mhm.
생기
Mhm.
낙습스 생기 자라도 낙습시가로 다드네 낙습스라 생기 류 롱제 가와이네래 대란 낙습 록다스라데 조가 들어가야스나 레 군데 세데 캐만나 봐서 어딘지다 아 군데게 남샤 캐만나 봐서 살다인데 고마고네 계산인 받아보지 도와줘 그 두자 내가 두자 전에 사마 계산인 받아보지 산다인데 어디 레데 캐만나 만스 어디라고 야래 아 되게 됐다 자와 하청게 자와 두자 주지 시작이 야래 자와 두자 주부대 뽕을 추림세데 나나서 미참에 쏜 거야 최케 라네 쏜 거야지 최케 말랑게든 쏜 거야지 다 최케랑은 대회장 다음에 되게도 네바도 쏜 거야 차지든 두스가 되게 대라들 알레 담보 나도 디도는 되게 해서라
So, Geshe says, first of all, where do we start today? We start on page 37 in the Tibetan, where it says on the top, De la Leche. Yeah, so this is on top of the first full paragraph on the page. So in the English, this is on page was that 21, and it says regarding what is called karma. Yeah, that's where we are. So here the context here is that we are talking about the motivation that is part of a karma, or let's say from the beginning, this karma means action uh, in Sanskrit. So that's what we're talking about, the motivation behind an action. And so when we say karma, what this is just talking about is everyday's activities that we are doing. Yeah. So that's what is action. It is not something totally obscure or special or something like this. It's just these daily activities that we are doing. So this is activities of the body, activities of the speech. And in Tibetan, there's the word le for karma or action, and the word lega for work. So these two in Tibetan have strong similarities. So this also gives you an idea what karma or action is about. Yeah, so it's similar. It has a similar ring to work. Yeah, to kind of producing something, doing something. So this is what this karma here is actually about. And why do we talk about this in the first place? Because we're talking about virtuous karma or virtuous actions and non-virtuous action, non-virtuous karma. And within that, there's all kind of forms or intensities of non-virtuous karma. Here we talk about the very strong forms of non-virtuous karma, the very coarse forms of non-virtuous karma. And in other words, we talk about the 10 non-virtuous actions, the 10 non-virtuous karmas. So this is the main topic here, and with regard to the virtue, this is also we talk about the strong, or how I say let's say the coarse or the great very manifest forms of virtue, which is the 10 virtuous actions. Yeah, so they're related to 10 non-virtuous actions. Yeah, we will see how this works. But the point is, both of these sets, the 10 non-virtuous actions and the 10 virtuous actions, are, Geshe said, are great or strong forms of this kind of actions. And that means that we are actually, or let's say, many very manifest things. So this is something that we are able to do. We do these 10 non-virtuous actions, and we are also able to do the 10 we do the 10 non-virtuous actions, and we are also able to do the 10 virtuous actions. So this is a topic that has to do with our capacity. We can actually practice with that. And so when we talk about the 10 non-virtuous actions, so they are totally negative. They are totally destructive, or instead of constructive. And this is something that is understood by everybody. You don't have to rely on the Buddha. You don't have to wait for the Buddha to express it like this. Everybody understands that these 10 actions that will be listed now are actually destructive or are negative. So the first one is killing. And when we talk about killing and we talk about the real great form and strong form of killing, we're talking about killing a human being. Yeah, this is the actual strong form of this non of this 10 within the 10 non-virtuous actions. The first one that is physical, and then the second one is taking what has not been given. So in other words, that means to steal something. But again, in order for it to be one of these so-called 10 non-virtuous actions, it actually has to be a great theft, yeah, some weighty theft, something intensive, something big. And the third one is called sexual misconduct. And here also we talk not just about any sexual misconduct, we talk about some the most coarse forms of this. And so the first thing that comes to mind here is the sexual misconduct, which is sexual conduct by way of force or violence. In other words, rape. Yeah. So this is the full-on non-virtuous actions in the context of the 10. And another one is also adulteration, I think you call this. So this is when you are engaging with somebody else. That is that you're not forcing the other person, but the other person is in a relationship. So there will come harm from this in different ways. Yeah. So this is the two ways, the two main things of this sexual misconduct. And so this is the coarse, strong, non-virtuous actions of the body here, this kind of killing, this kind of stealing, and this kind of sexual misconduct. And this is something that if you go to any culture, you go to any region, to any land, you will see that the people there, being Buddhist or not, will understand or will hold that this is negative. This is something destructive. Yeah, so this is something pervasive. And so this is what Geshe presented here is the three very strong, coarse, manifest forms of physical action or physical negative actions. And then with regard to the speech, you have lying. And again, we're talking about a very strong or very, very manifest, very, very intensive form of lying. Then something that's called divisive speech, something that is called harsh words, harsh speech. And again, we're talking about something that is incredibly hurting, incredibly mean. And then in the end, we talk about idle gossip or idle talk. So this is including all kind of forms of senseless or meaningless speech. So this is the four of the speech. Yeah? So we have three of the body and four of the speech. And all of these seven are just negative, are just destructive. Yeah, they have no positive side to them. So these three of the body and four of the speech are the seven non-virtuous actions. The seven non-virtuous actions. And then these seven have a motivation. So this motivation is the three non-virtuous actions of the mind. So the first one is called covetousness, or could also be greed or something like this, avarice. But anyway, it is of the type of attachment. So attachment can be a motivator for these physical and verbal actions. And so here, this attachment here that we call covetousness or greed or possessiveness or something is that you have a very strong need for something that is owned by somebody else. This is what this specific type of attachment is about. We are really longing and yearning for something that somebody else possesses. The second one is ill will or the wish to harm. And here you want to harm somebody else's body or somebody else's possessions and so forth. Yeah. So any kind of, again, other people's aspects or possessions, you want to harm that. And then the third one is wrong view. And again, many wrong views, but here the one that we are talking about is the wrong view that does not accept actions or the cause and effect with regard to actions. That actions are causes for certain effects and so forth. So this can take the form that you are saying that negative actions or destructive actions actually bring you only benefit. Yeah, you benefit from doing negative actions. Yeah, they bring about good things for you. So this would be such a wrong view, which is this 10th of the 10 non-virtuous actions. And so in this way, Geshe was giving a short presentation of these 10 non-virtues, that the strong forms of those, and you can abandon those. You can turn away from those, and you get an ethical discipline that abandons these 10 non-virtuous actions And this will be the 10 virtuous actions. Yeah? This is the virtue that we're talking about here in this context, abandoning these 10 non-virtuous actions by an ethics. So ethics, the word in Tibetan, is also a word that has something that you are disciplining yourself, ethical discipline or rules and discipline and so forth. Discipline, you discipline yourself such that you abandon these 10 non-virtuous actions. And this is something that what is described here, that you can have this kind of negative actions or this positive actions by abandoning them, by abandoning the 10 non-virtuous ones. You don't have to be a Dharma person for this. Also, a non-Dharma, a person that is not of the Dharma, is not a Buddhist, can practice in this way, can understand that these 10 are negative and that they can be abandoned and so forth. But if you're a Dharma person, then for sure you need to practice this kind of ethics. This is the bare minimum that you need to practice. That's true.
하더래. 저자 아 최캬랑바 있는다. 최캬만랑바 있는다. 다 미기 어쭈세데 니바도 본거야 차대결스. 랑이 미상고 시험되나? 라 미지 되게 나라다 미상고 시험되거나 되게 본거야레스. 다 근데 이제 가다 가야스나. 다 내가 미기 왔는데 미기 어쭈세데 나와 치중 시거시켜 가지고. 최고로 소시 미세봐. 중국어로 소시아바스라도 소 충중지제 소자 무슨 충중지 치면 이나야 대한 소시아바스 와.
지중 개발.
지중다 근데 디바 답 지중 개발도 수치뭐 쉬어야 봐. 다 되는 시 고마고야라 다가는 고마 침부고야지다. 충중지 거발이네. 꼭그 차베 쳐서 생기 다기 좀 뭐지 그 차베 쳐서 고구마나 고마 그들 레츠 사사레스. 다 치중지요래 레츠 담아라. 드레지데 미기 어쭈 되게 나올 치중 다 만다 쉬어져라 소주라 치중 다 만다 쉬어져라. 드네 고마고야 될 치중 다 만다 쉬어져라 왔어. 대신도 라임 잡아달라 치중 다 만다 쉬어져라. 다 주나 치중 다 만다 쉬어져 참아라 치 대파라 다 가서라. 치 배치 자다 나고 야와 책이여다 봐. 로다드나 드레스. 나 주르르는 준치모 침부시. 야 들레충시 들레충 춘춘춘 다자 제모전데 제샤바 이네. 코대야 주르스. 다 좀봐. 어디서 소지. 아, 셰파르 불로 누즈 시주 간지 저다 먼저 가기는 말. 내가 준도 준라레스다. 참아 잡아대 다나시 요레스. 참아를 시준 잡아다 줘라. 저상 나는 참아 잡아 다랑 point 답시 저고 요레스. 지르 소주 point. 지르 드는 로용 잡아야. 지르 드는 가서 마지막 렘바 point. 드는 준 참아 스중 아게라서 봐. 다 상제 드는 point 답시 셔다. 다 미기we 하랑지 미기we 레드가 파상 내가 사도 그랬어. 되게 소소통야 답시 잡아야나. 룽가게 레 뒤에가 뭐야 답시 잡아야나. 다가 랑게 다 소소게 레님보 망고 쇼지. dom사레스.
So what is on this level, when we talk about what needs to be abandoned or what is ethical discipline and so forth, what is a negative action and so forth. So if you are what is described here, this is the case if you are somebody who does accept Dharma or if you are somebody who does not accept Dharma. If you're a Dharma practitioner or not, this is something that holds. So for example, these 10 non-virtuous actions you will want to abandon if you are a Dharma person or not a Dharma person. And with regard to not a Dharma person, if you just want to be, have the wish to be a decent person, a positive person, a good person, you have just this wish, so you're just aiming at this very life. So if you have this wish and you want to be a positive person, you will have to give up these 10 non-virtuous actions. Yeah, so you don't have to have a big Dharma context or something like this. Yeah, so this is something that somebody of the Dharma and somebody who's not of the Dharma needs to work with these 10 non-virtuous actions, such that he works on abandoning the 10 non-virtuous actions. So that's one thing. Then the other thing is that when we list these 10 non-virtuous actions, then within them there is a great difference in being a great negativity of that type or a small negativity of that type. So, for example, when you are looking at killing, yeah, so killing is the first of the 10 non-virtuous actions. So, if you kill a human, this is a very strong form of killing. But then there is many other life forms that you can also kill, and so uh, let's say if you kill an insect or a life form of that type, that's a comparatively small negativity in comparison to killing a human being. Yeah, so there is this great difference in being a strong or a great form of killing or a smaller form of killing, and that then also has a difference in the karmic result. Yeah, what ripeness from that. So it's killing, all right. It's a destructive action, but one is a strong one, has a strong karmic ripening, and one is a small one, has a small karmic ripening. So the same thing for stealing. Yeah? And stealing also, you might do something that fulfills all the different aspects of stealing. So let's say you stole something very small and trifling. So it is stealing. It fulfills everything that characterizes stealing, but it is a very small form of stealing. It has a small negative outcome, a small karmic ripening, as opposed to doing a great theft, a really manifest and coarse form of stealing. Same thing for sexual misconduct. So there's a lot of different forms of sexual misconduct, and some of them are rather small. Yeah, and they will only give a small negativity, but they are a negativity. They are sexual misconduct, and the same for lying and for this the ones of speech and so forth. So you could say that each of these negativities have kind of 100 or more different levels in which they can happen. So like grades of intensity or of being great or being small and so forth. So when you are talking about lying, again, take this as an example. So there is something which is called a great lie. Yeah, there's a certain phenomenon that's called a great lie. It's the strongest form of lying. And then there is something that is below that. Yeah, it's also very strong, but it's not as strong. It's below that, and then something below that, and so forth, down to that you're telling a lie as a joke. So telling a lie as a joke is very small in its outcome. It's a very small form of a lie, but it is a lie. Yeah, it's not that you're telling the truth. You're telling a lie. And so that something is strong or that is small has a lot to do with if your form of lying is harming the other side that you're telling the lie to. Yeah, what kind of harm this brings or is intended and so forth. And the same thing also for divisive speech and so forth. And uh, so what Geshe is saying is what we need to work on is that we actually make a general attempt to get rid of any kind of killing, any kind of stealing, any kind of this non-virtuous action. So we try to do this in general. And by doing that, we will be able to abandon these very coarse forms, these actual forms of the 10 non-virtuous actions. And by practicing in this way and practicing ethical discipline in this way, we will be able to get rid or to avoid most of the non-virtues. Um, so uh, you will be able to actually restrain yourself or bind yourself with regard to these seven negative actions of the body and the speech. You will be able to abandon that.
다들은 딘지기들은 레데다게 중국어는 낙선에서 로다스드레스 낙섬스든 도샤가 차도 도샤를 스타트다 내섬스도 做 컨트롤 시작해야 돼 다들은 다 맞아야 야 다 로카세디 做 레균들라 로바르타 로다 시작해야 돼 렌데로 로바르타 사위 제수 다 가르쳐도 슬라데 디디발은 제야매 봐시 네 개월 배 개월 주에 탐지 가져서 랑가 가져 이어인데 치슈도다 레균들로 로바르타 로다 되네 스루와 도스가르 쳐제 낙심디 침보리 델레 양 낙심디 시우체 낙심 레장 로카데 디고 디고 쳐제 다 도스가 요래 디에디 뉴모 스루와 나다 디에디 뉴모 데다 고도라네 드네 레냐 맞체 용고 요래 스루와
lake the tambus dundi ra
응.
tendo some glamorous.
응.
So then
야, 먼저 좀 쓰면다. 알려주려고 뒤도.
so So the question is this kind of negative physical or verbal actions. What's their origin? Where do they come from? Yeah, how do they come about? Why do we end up in this kind of actions? And so the origin is right. These three negative acts of the or non acts of the mind, which is the covetousness, ill will, and wrong view. So the first one again, this covetousness is coming down to attachment. The second one is a form of anger or of I say let's say anger. And again, there's many types of anger also. And then the last one, this wrong view, is mainly talking about having a wrong view with regard to the result of actions. So why is that such a big problem? So if you have a wrong view that is denying that there is result of actions, then you do not consider negativities or negativities as something to take care of or to avoid. You don't care about negativities, and also you are not led to actually engage in virtue. So therefore, because it has this kind of two outcomes, this wrong view with regard to the results of actions is said that is the strongest of these three. It's out of the three mental non-virtues, the one that has the strongest negative outcome. So it is already strong to be motivated by attachment or by covetousness. Stronger than that is to be motivated by anger or by this ill will, and stronger than that yet is to be motivated or be under the sway of this wrong view. So all three of these are actually afflictions, and this kind of afflictions become the motivation for our actions. That means, so the word for motivation literally means like being totally taken. If you're totally taken by these afflictions, then this leads you into these actions of body and speech, and this is how you end up with these non-virtuous actions.
다 그랬을라도 다 가서 되게 나로네. 독시도 가서 찾았어. 레긴들로 로버도 로다 찾았어. 계시 키랑 렌들라 이지 싸마지 여봐 얘나. 키랑 주라 너스 마케도 탑시도 키랑 그 탑시는 소시도나 치도 그래. 나선 그리디 키랑 마케도 탑시 나소시 키랑 치도 그래. 나선 대숭도 뭐주나? 다 가르쳐서 류마가 레 준비 지금 왔다 된다. 저는 싸우 투사데 레 준비라 로버도 로다 샤오데. 스와.
So let's say that Geshe described now how the worst of all of these 10 is actually this wrong view. So if you are able to counteract that wrong view and get a faith or a conviction with regard to the results of actions, or that actions are causes that have results, then on that basis you will be willing to, or you will look out for methods to counteract ill will or harmful intent. And also you will look for methods to avoid being in the state of covetousness or this kind of attachment and so forth. Yeah. So by applying this kind of methods, you're successfully staying away, steering clear of being under wrong view, ill will, and covetousness, and therefore the 7 negative actions of body and mind will not come about because the motivations do not come about. So this is the way to guard the ethics of obeying the 10 non-virtuous actions.
그래서 제가 이나 당한테 드려리. 때나 독 세대 나나서 미수지게 독이 서 말해. 독이 막 치었으나. 가야서 가 시그레스 군세들레스. 오가 나그레스 군세들레스. 다던다. 대전에 먼저 나 추주 스트레스 지다스. 다제 추주 사다지는 사 말했어. 소스 지게 라바이나 미디도 자실도 성결 왔어. 가리에서는 되게 소스로 느끼고 군세도 전에 자원이나 가서 사게 말해. 저 돈이 뭐 하고서나 제가 아주 테스트 지금 말했을 때 따지지 지금 간데 도민도 제가 딱이 말했어. 제가 디마저는 독세베 제 대제게 강에 되게 돼 유한추요 말했다. 베드나시지 계세 결혼라 레 군데라 이지 상마지 레바이나 렌데라 이지 상마지 레바이나 다 결혼한 게 셔라 너스 잡아대 그 지부 년바라라 코기 여바다 하고네 나냐 너스 지금 말했어 나선데 지금 말했어 가인스나 걔는 지부 년바라라 연구 여바대 나선도 너스 길라 마케바이나 니케와 신다데 룽아게 신다데 그 레코르 랑가코르 민두스 꾸노 민두스라 right? Then gengen another le doja sa tang masa sa de tsama le gyunde le yichi be yichi tembo yeme la le gyundu. Kesi yichi tembo yena le nyamba de gri tsama ne yong na res. Kesi yichi mewa yindu sa ngansol de le nyamba de yong de gyo res. Junze de das.
So Geshe uses an example, the example of poison. So nobody would take poison when he understands that this is poison. Yeah, knowingly, nobody will take poison, and he will not take that poison because he knows this is poison, and he says, if I take that, I will die from it. If I will not die from it, I will be really, really sick, or will have some strong drawbacks physically and so forth. Yeah, so he understands that, and therefore he will not go there. He will not take this poison. Now somebody else says to him, like, oh, come on, take a little bit of it, just a little bit. You would say, no way, I'm not taking any of that. I'm not going anywhere because I will have some detrimental effects on me. I will maybe get sick from even this little bit and so on. So I'm not touching even the slightest bit of that poison. Yeah. Because he understands if I don't take this poison, I will not get any of that problems. I will not be in danger to die. I will not get sick and so on. Yeah? So he stays away from it, even from a little bit. So this is the example. So what we are talking about is that if you are able, in the same way, to have a faith of conviction, yeah, have a conviction with regard to actions having effects, then on that basis, having this kind of conviction, you will understand that you do not want to generate an ill will or a harmful intent with regard to somebody else, because you will suffer the consequences. You will get the results from that. And therefore, understanding that you don't want these results that come from that, you do not engage into ill will or harmful intent. In the same way, when you have understand that this covetousness that is again kind of longing for possessions or something of somebody else, when you understand that if I'm in that state of mind, I will suffer the consequences. I will get the results of these actions. Then, therefore, with this understanding, due to this conviction in karmic results, you will stay away from this kind of covetousness or this kind of greed and stuff like this. Yeah, and so when you do not have this ill will or this greed or this longing or this covetousness, you will not engage into the seven negative actions, non-virtuous actions of body and speech. Yeah. So in other words, you will be able to engage into a virtuous mind that stays away from those, and you do not engage into the non-virtuous action that actually lifts these non-virtuous actions. Yeah. So that you are engaging in this virtue and that you're staying away from this non-virtue is therefore dependent on having this conviction, this faith, this clarity, this conviction about that actions have results. And if you do not have this kind of conviction, then these seven actions of body and speech will happen.
아, 됐어요. 다도 자. 제자당 안 저기 아, 다 추준세대 야고 수모도 버데 가르쳐 버렸을라도 소소 켈란데 동바지 있는 동바들랑 가와 망고 쉬어야지. 와 근데 요에 내주데 그네 연구열었어. 켈라 렌데라 이지데 템포 메베 딱 데레스. 다도나 레균레 이지 템포데 마조베 딱 데레스. 디겐기 저선 그런게 동네 용에 레디 그런 거 시신도. 라. 동네 용에 레디 그런 거 지겨래. 그래서 디 동네 용에 레 임버스 대 시신도 그냥 나냐 지금 알았어.
Mhm.
아 근데 다 도스가라 산다죠. 당아서 미키고 주스 되게 나와네. 독슈디 록다스들다스. 록다스를 되게 나와다 레균달에 로베 록다테레스 독슈디. 레균들 끝남샤세데 낭베기 추냠니 지역이 시즈데 데레다스. 라 시즈데 렌들에 이지게 두고 친구도 라
So, what follows from all of this is that if you are not able to keep your ethics in a pure way, let's say you have vows, yeah, so you have certain vows and you're not keeping these vows well, so this is a clear sign that in you a stable form of conviction with regard to the result of actions has not arisen. This is why you don't keep your vows and your ethical discipline pure because you don't have a strong, stable conviction in the result of this of actions. So if you would have this conviction that really deeply understands and knows about the outcomes of negative action of non-virtuous actions, then you would never knowingly engage into actions that bring about the experience of suffering or dissatisfaction of suffering. Yeah. So you would never knowingly do that. Yeah. So there is a lack of knowledge and a lack of conviction there with regard to this cause and effect relationships. And so as the again we come to this kind of a lack of conviction in that actions have results, and that is a form. This is the wrong view. So wrong view actually has many different types, and wrong view is the worst of all these different afflictions or wrong statements. And within the wrong view, the wrong view that is wrong with regard to that actions have results and that it doesn't accept that is especially negative. So, so we need to get the opposite from that. We have to have a conviction with regard to actions in their results, and this conviction in the in actions having results and what kind of results becomes the foundation, the total basis of all of Buddhism.
아 그래. 도자. 다들 인디 당원에 제 결혼서 가르시 구도스라데 렌데스데 네즈디 시에데 하층게 계신 분이 뭐지 레 군달레 이지 야고에는 정수가 겸부세도도 나버타바 용그레스
Gemdo.
겸도 남다시 용그레스 렌데라 이지 여바에는 상기게 쳐들라 타삼 구숨 용이 쉬어시 되그레스 가이스나 드네 고 쉽도 쉬어시 두고야 왔어서 네즈디 당도 양다바 시야지 와 드네 추좀 송 추좀 가르 송야 도저네 가인스나 레라봉은 송 투에지기 된도 다 된다 가인스나 상계 쳐도 터섬 전도 숙치보지 내용 그래서
What do we do? What do we need to get take away from this? What do we really need to understand or need to know from this presentation? We need to take away that an understanding of actions and their effects is really essential. It's really important because if you have such an understanding, then on that basis you will be able to generate a pure form of refuge, of going for refuge. And if you have this understanding of the results of actions, then also you will be very eager to engage into listening to the Dharma, reflecting on the Dharma, and then cultivating the Dharma, meditating on the Dharma, cultivating the Dharma, because you want to understand more how this works, how the mind works, and how there's this kind of results and so forth. And further on, if you have this a clear understanding and conviction with regard to actions having results or the results of actions, then also you will be able to rather effortlessly or rather easily guard your ethical discipline.
아야 다도서 다단한데 가르송은 데라 레시 꾸능게 개발단 데면 토네 레섬 자와시 주신서다 꾸능 개발도 캔서 다 꾸능 개발 가르에서나 아 대샤 삼바꾸 꾸능 수청 뭐야 봐 된적이 왕게 다 대샤게 삼바 숙청부지 예가 왕게 딱 아니상하는 점불리디는 뭐도 개다 숙치설하나 드디어 도시락 삼백이 왕게 생기 가서 오다 롱주에다 생기 가리 임바 얘네 데 수수라 건데 대체도 뭐도 개다 딴 녀석 gengi 딱 가르쳐도 쓸었다 딴 녀석 gengi 하창 되네 말아서 가서 그러다 아 녀석 다 좋은 녀석 gengi 딴 가서 그러다 먼저 콘로 칠세 칠세 되네 차도서 칠세 되네 나켈데 치 디나레인 거래 아다 되네
Magil.
아
Magil.
나켈데 말해
Magil. Mhm.
어디 칠시 되네 세나도서 쇼심부 되네 질러 인구도 어다도 참마다 무슨 갱기다 지금 숙체지 대도는 용도 쓰와
Okay.
다도 나가서 심 무슨 갱기 셰파르드 르다 롱제다 카레 임바 얘네야 파길은 그거 연도 소송 다도 봐아 샘바메바 다 주에서도 하대도 무슨 갱이가 되기도 쓰와
So the different motivations behind our negative actions are such that first of all there is attachment, and so attachment is a strong driving force, a strong like actually Geshe first read out a little bit from the text. Sorry, let's just look at the text. It says here in the text on page 37 on top, regarding what is called karma, it refers to a karma or an action, yeah, karma, in other words, an action that one performs in association with a particular motivation. Yeah, so it's here. This is what Geshe is commenting on this that is mentioning here. This motivation. So this motivation can be first of all can be attachment. Yeah, so attachment is a strong motivator, a strong driving force behind negativity. For example, the wars that are fought in this world, they are actually coming from desire or from attachment. Yeah, so normally you fight a war because you are feeling a need or a longing or an attachment for the possessions and resources, especially the word resources comes here, the resources of somebody else. Yeah, so that's the driving force behind war. You're willing to go into war and destruction and so forth out of this attachment or this longing, this need for somebody else's resources. Yeah, so this is one of these examples how attachment is bringing forth very strong negativity, and this is an example, of course. So there's many other things. So there's this and others. Then with regard to ill will. Ill will can take a great many forms. It can be part of anger. It can be part of jealousy. It can be part of pride, or maybe you could say, anyway, pride. And Geshe also mentioned stinginess. Yeah, so miserliness. So all of this can come out of this ill will. And what this is actually a mind that cannot accept that the other side has positive things in their area of their body or their resources again and so forth. Yeah. So you actually want to harm that. You want to harm that body of the other person. You want to harm the resources of the other person and so forth.
아야 나도 산스다 다들 내 인도다 당한조 가르스라고 했으나 레들라 대나신체 대샤메바 셰다메바 띠무메베 세 덴디게 군도랑 랑윤데 다 가르쳐도 슬라이드 자와 강체버때 탐제다 상부 조용고야래 와 자상 안조 군우 상부 세데 군우 됐다나 참배 군도랑 바다 닝지 군도랑 바다 세배 군도랑 바다 다 동생 그 군도랑마다 군도랑에 심 상부 되게 탐지게 되네 용공 잡대 대샤메 바다 시다메 바다 때문에 봐서 되라네 지 연구부야래 좋아 근데 또 그걸 잡으려면 참 참아 줘야 지게 되겠지 좋아
Maybe some dental calcium tomorrow. So now let's look if you let's look what.
심주인지 고마워 대샤메베 심
Okay.
시다메베 심 라축으로보다
Okay.
때문에
So 각자 말해.
각자.
쌤 double check. So So let's look at what happens if the opposite is the motivator in our mind. So a motivation of non-attachment, or a motivation of non-anger, or a motivation of non-confusion. And so literally it's kind of saying the absence of attachment, the absence of it, but it's not a mere absence. We're talking here about a mental state of non-attachment, a mental state of non-anger, a mental state of non-confusion. So if that is present, then all your actions become something positive. Yeah, you do positive actions. You're in a positive state of mind, and so forth. Yeah, so you can have states of love, of compassion, a mind that wants to give to others, a mind of patience, and so forth. Yeah, or forbearance, and so forth. Yeah, so you can have all these positive minds, and they are coming as their source. They come from these states of this non-attachment, non-anger, and non-confusion.
아야 다들 다던다 레디스 년바지 있는다 레디 상부지 인바 있는다 드는 레디 제베 슈라 레디 시바스 용데요
Der Shipa.
아 레시바스 레디 시바스라 그래 다 레디 시바스라 인데 다디 균트네 용거레스라고요 봐 겨와이나 겨와 누스 겨와 펠제 용거레스 제가 시바이나 제가 시바되게 두스가 펠지 용거리 들라 서로 따기도 그 생겨 로지기지기랍죠 야 미기어로 소소만 드네스 두자 먹게 와이나 든 뒤에 왕게 레들라냐 손대 비행야지 타바 중재 레드 둘둘둘둘둘라야 되겠지 두스라 용거야다 당불에 중국지 마도 맞아버리나 연수로 심부 차로요 소리지 어디 개화에는 개화 충분히 개화 딱 연도를 뒤 첨부 쉬고 차려야 되겠지. 미교지는 대단 신시가 되겠지. 그봐. 저는 레기 15% 돈은 다 되는데스. 다 가르치고 이랬으나 다 나란서 메시되게 나와라. 되네. 태도도 레닌바 셔이나 다나 세면다 레기 15도 셔도 용되게 요랬어. 다 레게 시바드 연에서 땅 아제라 개바당 친제라 동생당 다 년부터 시고는 샤고 맞잖아 레딩 제부든 같이 뭐도 요 타죠 소소 제사서 요 타쳐 버렸다 뭐지 다 개월이면 개레데 드는 소소 제바데 다 아이스는 디 제부데 콩불라서 봤다 다 마좀 봐이나 근데 그 사무지 요 타쳐 버렸어 콩저도 와다스로 맞게 비시로
So our text here, which I have to open for a second, sorry. Our text here says, and so this is the second sentence. Once the karma is fulfilled, suffering arises as a result of the disintegratedness of the karma and the disintegratedness of the disintegratedness of the karma, and so on. So what this is talking about is that you do a certain action, yeah, and that one action, this action is complete, and then it is over. So it disintegrates. Yeah, this action is no longer happening. But instead there is this disintegratedness, as this is called. Yeah. So the action, the karma has actually disintegrated, and then this disintegratedness is actually a function. So this is actually, this disintegratedness here is talking about a functioning phenomenon. This is talking about an impermanent phenomenon. So this disintegratedness of the action is over, but the disintegratedness is still here. And this disintegratedness itself is an impermanent phenomenon. So it itself also is disintegrating. So there is a disintegratedness of the disintegratedness and so forth. And so this makes a continuity. But what Geshe is now also saying, so first of all, this is a description what happens to actions. It doesn't matter, irrespective if it is a negative action or if it is a positive action. Simply it being an action has this effect. The action is over if it is positive or negative, and what remains is a disintegratedness. And this disintegratedness itself disintegrates, there's a disintegratedness of the disintegratedness, and so forth. This makes a continuity. So Geshe says within this process of this disintegnatedness changing into another disintegnatedness and so forth, there can also be a great increase in this karma. Yeah, so the karma is done, makes a disintegratedness, then this whole process starts, and within that there can be an increase. So something that was like a small negativity becomes in the process a stronger negative, becomes more powerful, stronger, more powerful. Same also with something positive. Something positive can also increase in its process of disintegratedness. So let's say in this life you do something negative, then the negative action is over, and then there's this disintegratedness. It disintegrates in something else and so forth. So unless this continuity of disintegratedness meets a mind of regretting this negative action and purification by way of the four opponent powers, yeah. So if that happens, then the disintegratedness will be changed, will be maybe even dissolved. But if it does not happen, if something like this does not happen, then it will continue until it finally will give its result. Yeah? At one point, there will be the result ripening out of this disintegratedness. And the same thing is true also for a virtuous activity. So you do in this life a virtuous action, and then the action is over. It has disintegrated, and instead there is this disintegratedness, yeah, and a permanent functioning thing that is itself disintegrating into its own disintegratedness and so forth. And so that also can then increase, and especially it continues as a continuity, such that if it does not meet with the adverse conditions of anger, especially anger, but Geshe also mentioned wrong view also. Yeah, so if this kind of harmful mindset can harm virtuous karma, if they are not arising, then also this continuity of disintegratedness will finally give its positive result. 재산카레 탄다 기부 카레사 데네 카레 시그네 데네 식베 식발라 수바디 정말 요레스
이 식이 쉬워서 교리다.
음.
교리 못하네. 그래서 요는데 리뷰 준 거랬다.
뒤에 치료 두기를
chershudroyo, no wake, moat, mango chen, ya diam de keza, shenda mango sa yomba yena, then they'll pento yore.
So I just, because you hear this quite often that negative karma is increasing, but also here Geshe is clearly stating that this is also true for positive karma. So positive karma leaves this imprint or leaves this disintegratedness, and if it is not harmed by anger or wrong view and so forth, yeah, it will also increase, and it can also be actively made to increase by way of you doing a dedication of that positive karma, and by way of yours kind of nourishing it by other virtues.
No, that's just the answer.
So Geshe said like you can strengthen it by dedication and by rejoicing in it. And then also Geshe said like you can also nourish it by all kind of other virtuous activity and so forth. Yeah. So in this way it can also increase.
Dale, tate na ganyin sena dirdas. Le gewa jena, kiwe gen drigudi, ta gewa de pe tuzuringu wana cheba yena ya di shibo de gyuma cheba yoninte den dribudu njungires. Dale mikiwa cheba yena, mikiwa legi shibo de gyuma cheba chungche, anzo shakwa chemodo wa yena, den gyuma cheba yonche den dribudu yungires ta. 대 요아지 레스 다스 매워 짜오네 척이요 말다 사지 근데 그 뒤스로 좋아져다 매워 쳐서 치기요 말다 스로
So the main thing here is that we need to understand if you do a virtuous action, the action is over, but it gets into the state of disintegratedness, and then this disintegratedness becomes its own, transforms it into its own disintegratedness, and so forth, and there comes a continuity. So if this continuity is not disturbed or cut by some adverse negative factors, then the continuity will be there and will continue until it gives a result. It will never by itself simply run out or dissipate or something like this. Same thing with the non-virtue. If you do a non-virtuous action, the action itself is over, it generates this disintegratedness, and then that disintegrates into its own disintegratedness, and so forth. There's a continuity starting. And let's say for some reason we are not able to counteract this negativity by way of regret and the other opposing powers. We are not able to purify it by way of the four opposing powers. Then this continuity will also continue, and it will always continue until it finally gives its result. So, in other words, it will never just dissipate just like that, like just because nothing much happened or because it's so much time passed or something like this. It will not go out of existence just because of that. It will stay. Yeah, so the continuity will continue until it gives its result.
하나 가지고 준을 시켜줘. 미절로 준시 시켜줘. 준 제바데 소소 준 시바데 제바 이내야. 근데 내가 시바데 용한테 해요라서 저 소소로 너지 못도 용해야랬어. 준 시바데 제사바 이나. 이는 거다 내가 시바데 하자 용한테도 저거랑 미용 그랬어. 봐.
So let's take as an example, for example, lying. So we tell a lie to somebody, and then this moment is over. Yeah. So we're no longer lying. That the action of lying is over. So that's all right. That's over. But there is a disintegratedness. There is this factor or this phenomenon of disintegratedness there that is the starting of a continuity, and that although the action of lying is over. Yeah, this is kind of receding into the past. Nevertheless, the causes for us to receive the results from this lying are still there.
계속 그런 게 시행을 껴보질 다 짐벌했단 말이야. 짐벌당체 뒤들 무시 그냥 제바이나 딘데부 수수로 마고 요해라 그랬어.
So if you are giving something to somebody else, you're generous to somebody. Let's say there's some poor person, some beggar or something, and you gave something to this person. Yeah. So then after that, you do something else. So the action of generosity or of giving is over. And it is receding into the past, maybe such that you forget about it. Yeah, you're not even aware of it anymore. But although you have forgotten about it and the actual action has receded in the past, this integratedness is still there, and the continuity or the reverberation, if you like, of this action is still there and will continue to be there until it finally gives its result.
다 가려고 그랬어. 렌트 밀루어스라고 그랬어. 렌트 밀루어스 칼란다. 레 규리스도 장부 시부시를 나왔어. 들 좀 조사야 말했어. 전자도 길티시고.
And so we hear sometimes that the cause and effect with regard to action is undeceiving. So what this wants to say is that this relationship between actions and their results is something pretty straightforward and something pretty honest. So there is no lying or deceiving going on there. It's always like that. Yeah, it's something reliable. It's something honest from that point of view.
나라서 미라지나 그 주말 시에는 연구 오래 땅에 지 조사 지어로. 어디 레균을 때 조사야 말았어. 저는 dur신 말했어.
So, for example, as a human being, you can try to kind of manipulate a situation by lying something or faking something or something like that, and then maybe you somehow get out of the mess, yeah, by this lying and so forth, yeah. So, with regard to cause and effect of actions or the workings of karma, there's no such thing, yeah. You cannot manipulate or escape karma or something like this, yeah. You cannot fake something and get out of that. Actually, if you would try to include lies here, you would actually make the situation worse.
어디서래? 다 준제 대자. 다들 간자 다래 가르쳐는 저와 얘기해서 레기 시바 세지. 전에 가인산 드라마티스 레기 시발로서 토하는 지부 동의 영화니. 되나? 다네 그대 임바이나 말아서 깨와 인세 다 레기 샤마지르베 마르베 토들레인 거라. 다 깨와 인세 레기 샤마지르스라고야 마르다스. 베라샤스나 말아서 셈세리인데 차데 되고래 레기 샤마지르스라고야 마레스. 베랑 알아서 매드 사바쇼도스라데 매 사회나 신임바데 레기 샤마지게 마레스데. 출렁보지 대샤스라데 디 대대게 레기 샤마지게 시기야 마레스. 나라서 단다데 가르치는 심주기 땐도 심세리기 차디 코 레기 샤마자 말해대 심주 디텐도 네가티 망고 쇼실레인 것도 레기 시바 망고 쇼실레 제 디텐도 때네 냠바데네 니베 저버치 용도 상보지는 상보 저버치 용도 제가 디게디 가야스나 셴기 셴 교다 게 셴기 셴마자 되시나 와딜라로 대나 깨와 인제 레기 샤마자 임글라스 시베 균여베스 시베 균여레스 깨와 홍양스 동행기 동행기 라시남 레게 샤완창기 겨왕한테 시베 규여버 코네 연구야 말레스 요 멤버 규신시여스 어딜 치겨라 다 가래서 규신데 간이 쳐봐야나 다 레게도 봐버레스 어딜
So, why is Geshe talking about all of this? Yeah? So this has to do obviously with the text. He's taking the text as a starting point for all this explanation. So here it said, once the karma is fulfilled, suffering arises as a result of the disintegratedness of the karma and the disintegratedness of the disintegratedness of the karma, and so on. Therefore, everything related to birth does not need to be under the power of karma. So I guess what this means is that everything that is related to everything that is something arising, yeah, something that is something is born, something that comes into existence, yeah, is not necessarily related does not need to be under the power. That does not need to be under the power of karma. So, for example, when you talk about the mind, yeah, so the mind being mind, or the definition is that which is clear knowing. So the mind being clear knowing is so that arises. So something that is clear knowing, mind arises. This is not because of karma. Yeah, that mind is clear in knowing, that is clear in knowing this arises, is not because it is under the power of karma. It's not due to karma that this arises. Yeah, so, but it's just the nature of the mind. The mind is clear knowing. Yeah, you don't need the karma for that. And also that fire is hot or hot and burning, as they say, is also not coming from karma. And that water is wet and so forth. It's just the nature of water. It's not that water is wet under the power of karma. Yeah, this is not the case. But so especially coming back to the mind being mind, or the mind being clear and knowing. Yeah, so this part of the mind that it is clear and knowing is not coming from the power of karma. This is not arising under the power of karma. Rather, on top of this mind, or within this mind, if something negative happens, then this leads to later experiences of suffering. If something positive happens, then this is leading to later experiencing of some satisfying moment or some happiness and so forth. And this is something that is under the power of karma. Yeah, this process. So here, this kind of relations are something that is under the power of karma, but not everything that is born or everything that is arising under the power of karma. For example, the mind itself, or fire and water and so forth, or their nature. And so therefore it says here, therefore everything related to birth does not need to be under the power of karma. Due to the cognitive continuum, there will be production and also birth of the nature of suffering, or under the power of karma. Due to the cognitive continuum, there will be production and also birth of the nature of suffering, or under the power of karma. However, this is not solely due to the existence of the cognitive continuum, but also to the existence of other causes. And so, in other words, that this is saying that because that there is a suffering experience arising is not just because there is an existence of a cognitive continuum, a mental continuum, but it is because of the existence of other causes. What are those? Namely, this is karma. Yeah, due to karma, there is in the mind there is the specific experiences arising.
아야 나도 쟤 레시바 데사 자오 꿀웅기 캐바단데 자오 주바실라 쳬베스라데 레기 자오 용수 소바실라 인데가라 다 꿀웅기 캐바 로아 단 대샤시단 디무숨세 단 단지딜라 레 타던다 낙선너선 로가 숨세라 로아 다 데글란 대샤시단 디무숨스라 위아레 딘지기 다 꿀웅기 캐바 텐데지다 나라도로 띠뭉게 왕게 내가 두자 먹고 채셔라 도샤 왕게 내가 먹고 두자 먹고 치기하래 시단게 왕게 먹고 치기하래 제가 나눠서 다 나지래 도샤 매베 왕게 레상모 먹고 사요 거래 시단 매베 왕게 레상모 먹고 사요 거래 띠무 매베 왕게 레먹고 사요 레상모 먹고 사요 제가 그 무슨 꾸는 캐바랬어 꾸는 캐바라 때네 때문에 저도 주의하래서라고 제배 꾸농 꾸노다 생게 토도 바바 인스 다 되게 사마 생게 내가 제시래도 와 세서
And then he continues saying, the last sentence is, however, this is not solely due to the existence of the cognitive continuum, but also to the existence of other causes. And if we examine these other causes, they fall under the umbrella of karma. And then it says, since what is referred to as karma is affirmed as an action performed with a particular motivation as its root, it falls under the category of motivation and mind. So the point is that when we talk about karma and that it is a negative or a positive action and having respective suffering or happy or satisfying experiences, then this is depending on the three types of motivation of attachment, anger, or aversion, sometimes they call it aversion, and ignorance. Or here in our context, it was by way of covetousness, ill will, and wrong view. So anyway, if you have these, yeah, if you're engaging into if you come under the power of attachment, due to the power of this attachment, you end up in doing a lot of negative actions. If you come under the power of aversion or anger, due to the power of this anger, you engage into a lot of different negative actions. And if you come under the power of ignorance, especially here this wrong view with regard to the effects of actions, again, you end up in doing all kind of negativities. Now, if you would get into a state where you would be in a state of non-attachment, you would be ending up in all kind of positive actions. If you would get into a state of non-anger, then you would end up with doing a lot of positive actions. If you would be in a state of non-confusion, non-ignorance, then you would end up in again doing a lot of positive actions. So this is how how the motivation relates to our actions, and that's why it was said here, since what is referred to as karma is affirmed as an action performed with a particular motivation as its root, it falls under the category of motivation and mind. Yeah, so in the end, everything that we are doing is coming from the mind.
아야 나도 아 답변은 알아서 들으자 나 소체기미 가인서 계속 소체는 나라 드고 동에 두자시 용거랬어 나 고모고기미 가인서 계속 들으잖아 드고 동에 나라 용거랬어 제대로 동에 중에서 경제대 상담에는 초지나 라친지 군도랑서 얘네들의 겨울업 신부주의 알았다 하고서
So therefore, if you understand that, then you say like if you have an understanding of this effect that actions have on your experience, then you would say, "Oh, I will not kill anybody because from this there will be great negativity coming to me. I will not engage into any kind of negative action or harmful action to others because I will have to experience the suffering that in my own continuum that is the result of that." So this is therefore a way of thinking that keeps you away from this non-virtue. Now, from one point of view, you could say this is totally self-cherishing. This is totally self-centered. Yeah, you're staying away from this action because you will have a negative outcome from that. So that's true. It is a self-centered attitude with which you are working here, but nevertheless, why you have this self-centered attitude or the self-cherishing in this kind of thought, it leads to you accumulating great waves of merit.
알았어 다 된대상 마담제 나 파르부 쏘아 책임이니까 뭐 파르부 쏘아데 나랑 거 쏘아도 짜치는 집이 지게랬어 나 고마고금이 견자가인상 내 잘라대다 코 파르부 잘라대 집이 지게랬어 와 견자도 사는데냐 식 파르부를 펜셈 수신부대 군들라네 누구도 왔어 대기 개월업 치는 줄 알지 응 두스카라 영대게 그랬어
So now you might say, I will not kill this other person because this other person is cherishing his life as intensely and as much as I cherish my own life. So therefore, I will not destroy the life of this other person. I will not steal from this other person because this other person is cherishing his belongings and his things as much as I cherish my belongings and things. So therefore, I will not steal from this other person. So this is a mind that is taking into account the benefit of the other side of the other person. Yeah? You consider the other person, and so here the motivation here is including a mind of benefiting, yeah? A beneficial mind, a mind that wants to that considers the other person and so forth. So obviously this also leads to you abstaining from killing or from stealing, and it also generates a virtue. But because of this, the attitude of actually considering the other side and having this mind of benefit, it creates much more merit, much bigger waves of merit than the previous one.
저도 드네 슈 쳐르다죠. 아서 나 파르 세게미 경제 가래에서는 미 대납제는다 소자 대 깨원 스럽 탐색이 되는 나랑 게뭐 마셔 봐 마도 나랑 tin치고 파마 가서 쳐살았어. 다음에 쳐서 나라 tin치 짠냐랬어.
Pama.
tin치고 파마 가서 쳐살았어. 돌산다마이나 아서 바기 그 소데 계속 내 근데 두자 제바이나 파르들 같이 동안 태그를 님제 상시로 어든지 상군군도랑바이나 대회장다 겨와들 합쳐그러지 다 잘알다 하나 상상 갔다만 당하는데 군웅이 개발할 때는 연구를 했어요. 레디 치중 컨디션 연구돼 레디 군웅이 개발할 때는 연구를 했어요. 상당도 두서 상당 그래.
So then you can take that even further. And your with regard to killing, again, we take killing as an example. So you are saying, I will not kill this other living being here because this other living being, apart from that, I can't remember that or I'm not clear about this. I can't identify that fact. Actually, this being has been many, many, many times very, very kind to me, has been father and mother, has been very kind as father and mother to me. It's just that I don't remember this, I don't acknowledge that. But actually, this is what this living being here is. This is a person that has been incredibly kind to me. I will definitely not kill that person that has been incredibly kind to me. And further on, also you think about that if I'm doing that kind of action, if it is stealing, even killing or stealing, it will give so much suffering to the other side. I don't want the other person to suffer. Yeah, so that's a wish of compassion. So you're motivated by compassion. Yeah, you don't wish the other person to suffer. And that also makes this the whole action where you then also abstain from killing or stealing or whatever, makes it even stronger. Yeah, makes it an even stronger virtuous activity. And so, what this all wants to say is, in all these different situations, what is the key factor here with regard to saying that this is a positive action, negative action, or a strongly positive action, and so forth, is the motivation. If a certain kind of action has strong or smaller results, is depending on the motivation.
와드레레 다 군노다 셈기조도 바바니스데 다 대야 조的간인스나 나와 차별한 게 영화 땅스라들래 나라서 간인스나 예 코에네가기 동네 용야기 되네 나라서 동네 용야기 레데 강 사마 가능성 라치버 스위치 소소치도록 라치버 숨에 디 겐게 레데 체인 거야다 다 차별한 것으로 라치버 숨 제가도 소설로 담아도 제 대왕이 대시한 바로 보라 두자체 참아체 연구야 다 두서 레스 다 두스가 살아 다 안중무시 가르사야 상하이 레스나 레 제가 되네 레스 다 되게 레 제한테 랑나라 차베 왕기 마치버 숨의 왕기 대왕기 레 강가 제용도 상서 코르게 와라야길래 상부인의 대왕과 지기도 년바진의 대왕과 지기도 수라 코르게 와라는 레스로이드 안진지기 나라 차별관계 대왕과 제용도 다들 왕과 제세 나라 차세게 다들 노행길라 간데 차선다 다음에 봤어요 가정 문제지 계제 디셔인 거였어 돈인 계제 디셔로였어
And so then it says, furthermore, when one is primarily under the sway of self-attachment, how does this self to which one is attached spontaneously appear to our awareness? So here now there is an interesting development done. So it says here that we are primarily under the sway of self-attachment. So this is saying like this is when we do an action, we are doing it mainly under being greatly concerned about ourself. So in the end, Geshe leads this to the factor of self-centeredness or self-cherishing. Yeah. So you do certain actions for your own good or for yourself. And being in this kind of state. So again, I'm saying this when it says here, one is primarily under this way of self-attachment. So the self-attachment, Geshe reads as self-cherishing. Yeah. So because of the self-cherishing, therefore you are entering into actions that are actually bringing sufferings to others because you're not cherishing the others, you're cherishing yourself. And Geshe says all the actions that bring about birth within samsara, be they positive actions or negative actions, but anyway, they are only bringing about rebirth in samsara. They all come from this self-cherishing. So this is the first part here. Yeah? The emphasis that is put here in the first part. One is primarily under the sway of self-attachment, and because this self-cherishing or this self-attachment, this focus on the self is there and is behind all these actions, especially those that bring you birth in samsara. The question comes: what about that self? Yeah, how does this self that you are so attached to, and that this by attachment to which you are bringing about all these different actions, how does this one exist, or how does it appear? So this will now lead into the area of emptiness, or that the self is empty of certain things and so forth. So therefore, it says here, when one is primarily under the sway of self-attachment, how does the self to which one is so attached spontaneously appear to our awareness?
나도 직상당했어. 땅아 세도 왔어. 나서 저의 여당 간대래서는 나 세대 저에게 나 세대 레 준레기 때도 교가 나 세대 코다 가인스나 나 세대 나라도 다시 풍부라 파 때나 따봐 삼치요레스 나 세대 진지기 자와 책임지레스 개와 다 개와치다 되네 가서 내봐치다 지바스더라 긴지 내서 자와 책임지레스
Okay.
근데 내가라 나세디 얘네 풍부라 때네 따봐 삼지 나라서 풍부스러지 고모나 좋아 근데 질 때네 따봐 야나 루시미라 때네 따봐 삼지레스 라는 데도 뭐 때네 따봐 진시 마도지기 나세디 풍부 나로네 제가 dro나 차시 샘게 된도 제가 dro나 많이 르게 차시 된도 제네니 매 루슨다 저 매버지 치료도 자간도는 니야 매 나도 니야 매딱 두스가 있잖아 니좀 매스 나 이나 가서 가르쳐도 없어 다 단다 듣게지다 가르쳐다 간라 쳐다 가인스나 간라 쳐세 다데 롤 행길래 지들 차와네 스르다 지들 차와니 나시 쳐봐나 롤 행길라 나데 지호도 부지 차이스도 와스 나이 르다 셈시 제인데 루시 니부디 코보다 부지 차게도 왔어. 로 차방 근데 지도 왔어.
Kölbudi Chala Greskenes.
응.
So,
코보스 무슨 아주 돌아지는 아주 개바 코데는 아주 잡아야는 정말 코보라다.
so in other words, the interest has now shifted to the topic of this I. Huh? The I in what way does it exist? Yeah. So it is something that is here very important in this process of attachment to self and I and so forth. So this I, which is kind of this root here, how does it actually exist? So actually, this I is only existing as being merely imputed on the aggregates. Yeah, so actually, this is how it exists. It exists by being merely imputed on the aggregates. So the aggregates refers to the five aggregates. You could also say the I is existing as being merely imputed on the two, body and mind. That's another way to say that. Yes, merely imputed on body and mind, and so forth. So that's one thing that we can say. This is how it actually exists. But at the same time, you can also say something about it as an existent phenomenon. It is that which is engaging into all kind of activities of generating something or making something abide or destroying something, dissolving something. So it does all kind of actions like this. ngati kare ge ne chiki chawa chigyores. Yami ngati kare ge.
교단계라 때는 게 교경이다 건네 교경이다 건 직set식이 알았어.
So Geshe actually means rather than this self is also such that it is arising. It is it's arising in dependence on cause and condition. It abides in dependence on cause and condition, and it is also dissolving in on the basis of cause and conditions. Yeah. So this both we can see we can say about this self, yeah, that it is arising, abiding, and disintegrating by way of cause and conditions, that it is merely imputed on the five aggregates, or it is merely imputed on the two, body and mind. And we can, in a negative way, we can say this I, if you would try to go beyond, that is merely imputed on the five aggregates, and you would try to find it amongst the aggregates. Then, if you would look for it amongst the mind or the mental aspects, you will not find anything. You will not find this I. If you look for it within the body or the physical parts, you will also not find it. Then, if you would say, well, then I look outside of all of this, yeah, I try to find the self somewhere outside of the aggregates, you will not find something. You will not find something inside the aggregates, yeah. So the self is merely imputed on the five aggregates, but if you will look for it, you will have nowhere where you can find something that is this I.
따라서는 아주 류기되는 그런 세긴 됐으라데 살다나 두스탄 거래. 나세디 쓰고다. 나 얘는 열어봐다. 나라서 얘가 태순kin 민도 와. 나나게도 나세게도 나 지기부도 민도세 사마제 내대도 지체돼 열어봐. 내 전에 주에서 미쳐가 소소 단다시 주제 대대 열어. 나세도 얘네 주고 열마다 맨날 뒤체김도 왔어. 근데 여단다 간데도 없어. 나라도 룰 상담 바이나 류디 되네 중앙하게 다니지 중앙에서는 사 저는 수고도래 샤도 로고라 소는 중앙 사를 주셔봐서 출래 주셔봐 되는 거 렌시 렌베리가 참아를 타다 들었어 되네 저기 레지도 와야 매일 르디 트레이더래 롱디나 롱 우당 중앙 제가 타게 타야 좀 아주 제 무슨 롱도 그 지게 알아 다 되는 동바제 도야 된 중앙한 게 감시네
Okay.
제가 중앙을 주셔봐 레디 단 중앙하게 돼도 중앙하고 가야 돼 나서도 말했다 내가 때는 답을 좀지 마다 지금 그 가야 말했다 단 남시들 남시들 그 남시세들 초제 모두 되네 단 되는 시제 내가 있는다 남시들 경가지 지예요 경가지 가봤자가로네 내가 나서 되게 말했다 남시들 제가 류당 나세데 근데게 풍부 주스라고 감 주스라고 그러다 근데게 감 주들 때는 따봐 잠시 마도 다시라 때는 다시디 다다 감 주디 간스는 내 다시다스 내 다시라 파다 잠시라 마도 다시 코랑 때는 나데 주에 매 타셔 레드 와스당면서 근데 성당 거래
So, for example, when we look at the body arises from the five elements. So the five elements are talking about first of all about earth. Yeah. So the body the earth aspect of the body is referring to something like the bones and stuff like this. Yeah. So everything that is kind of firm, if you like. Then there is the water aspect of the body. So this is referring to everything that is moist or fluid in the body. Yeah. Then you have the fire aspect of the body. So this is any kind of heat that you have within the body, any kind of heat phenomenon. And then you have the wind element connect to the body. So this is especially the breath and all the different movements in the body and so forth. And then you have actually also parts within the body they are empty or they are empty. And so this is referred to as the space element. Yeah. So we have these five elements of earth, water, fire, wind, and space. So uh, so this is what kind of constitutes the body. And if you now would like to find this self or this I somewhere in any of these elements or these elemental parts of the body, you will not find anything there that is the I. So apart from the I being merely imputed on that, you cannot find it in any of these aspects. And then there is consciousness. So consciousness you cannot search in the same way like the body by way of going to the five elements, but you can refer to the consciousness as being a continuity, and you can talk about earlier and later parts of that continuity. And so when you check here earlier and later parts of the continuity of consciousness, you will also not find any of that being the I. Again, it is merely that on which the I is imputed. And so then Geshe talked about the six constituents or the six elements. So when we talk about the six constituents, we talk about the first five are these five elements that we've been talking about: earth, water, fire, wind, and space. And the sixth constituent is consciousness. So we have actually now looked in any of these constituents if it is the I, and we could not find anything there. So these six constituents that they are the basis of imputation for the I, but when you are looking for them, then you cannot find them. So the six elements are the basis of imputation, such that the I, and literally it says, is merely imputed outwardly, yeah, towards it. It's only imputed towards it. You could also is projected on it. So that's all there is. But if you look for the I beyond that, you will not find it.
알았어. 다이네 다 만족을 한게라 가르쳐게도 슬라인데가 나라도 놀 한게서 가세데 되네 지치고 따고 장년다 보지 내 루스님부디 되네 내게 코보나 신치 롱체 저자인 나 신치 대수는 가시 차왔나 나데 원 주어보 와시다 되게도 상황 규제도 보지 된대샤네다 나의 르다 나의 셈시 차인데 차왔나 대다 내원 교장 롱체샤 내 류시 저인데 류가 따고 류딩이 따고 자서도 보 나스 따고 자겐도 차네 나의 류시 나의 셈시는 죽도 웃잖아 봐
So this in this Geshe has described how the I actually exists and how it does not exist. But the question here now is, how does the I appear to exist? How does it appear to our spontaneous or normal innate consciousness? And so here it says, what we call the I appears to cognition as the master. As the master. And when we designate both body and mind as my body and my mind, they appear to be its servants. So the word in Tibetan here for servant is kölpo, and Geshe is reading this word as being any kind of resource, not necessarily a servant or a person, but it can be all kind of things like your clothes or something that you're wearing in one way or another. So it's your things, yeah. So you are the Lord or the owner, and a body and mind appear like things that you own or something like that, yeah. So So this is how Geshe reads this part. So this is how it appears to us. Yeah, so it's different from how it actually exists, but it appears like that. Similarly, if the I appears to cognition, this I seems to be the potentate or the owner. And if my body and my mind appear, they seem to be its subjects or possessions. Likewise, if we say my body, this body seems to be the property, and the I appears as the owner. This is how we express ourselves by saying my body and my mind. Okay.
그래서
Mhm.
아 되자 아 된대가 진짜 내일도 내 셈시 인세 딩에 차라 인셔봐 나 신세 딩에 차라 다스
Die Chubadar, Ngai Lüter, Ngai Sem Yin.
셈인 저 어떤 나지 저는 내를 내 셈슬라고스
Mhm.
나도 코보다 보지 나 코보다 보지 다 가서 왕 교보부터 집체 신다도 참왕 규제다고 내리다 내 잘하다 내 셈다 내 르르다 쓰나 나도 다 못하겠다고
Das ist noch so Labdang die Dabores. Das
응?
ist noch so Labdang Dabung, also sagen wir, du,
뭐 싸움 싸움
das dir das.
뭐 됐을
Okay, so when it's said here in the end, this is how we express ourselves by saying my body and my mind. So the point is that this is exactly what we are doing. You know, we are referring to my body and my mind, and in that we are really kind of expressing that we are the owner, yeah, of which this body and this mind is mine. And so this is a way of expressing, all right, but what this is saying here is it actually appears to us in our mind that this is the actual case, that we are the owner of this body and the owner of this mind.
알았어래
Yeah, we 말해봐.
아
그래서
근데 말을 못하 맨이랑 안주 셈을 대처겨요
그냥 얘 류들한테 그냥 dem 말해봐.
그래 내 르스도 말이래 내 셈슬라인데 디니데 내 다고 작사다 보실로 쳐기도 나 다고 작겐도 보실로 쳐기도 이네 디 바라 그 딘데게 아 가서 데 지워다 코보다 시지 여러 전데 여 말해 루스는 파다 섬지마다 여 말해 응
So,
그래서
so in general, this is a valid statement when we talk about our body as being our body. Yeah? When I say about my body, this is my body. This is a valid statement. But the problem is that we are not just saying that, but we are referring to this like as if we would exist as an owner, and this body and this mind would be existing like things that are owned by us, like clothes or something like that. And this is not the case. Yeah, this is not how we exist. Instead, we only exist being merely imputed on the five aggregates, on body and mind and so forth. Yeah. So means there is a certain truth in saying like this is my body rather than this somebody else's body. This is my body and this is my mind. But the way we are perceiving this, how this appears to us, this kind of ownership, yeah, is not the case.
나도 쓰셔 나도 쓰셔 단딩에 잘라인 바따라 소스 주무르지다는 주무르지는 파도시 바가 조사가 샤바이네 딩에르다 스네 주무르다스 다돈데 라용도 오슬어 버다 셰주주주베스 다보 갸게 나세와 치당 다보 갸세기 루스체네 다도카라 다야와 도사 체제 니로치 셰기도스 샤신스 샤웨가 패지 원 규겐게 나데 원 규제 풍부함 루슨 그 셈나 여바다고지로 쳐기야 말했어 다 가르쳐기도스는 개보다 lum부도 신시 하고서 들으시구나 나다 원 규세 루슨로 왕 쳐왔다 나서디 루슨로 왕 쳐왔다 보지 봐 타다 로스 여방 근데 로를 차방치 누수거야 다 루슨로 땜바 메바스 루슨로 땜바 메바 땜바 메바다 보지 로 셔기도스 공원 교견도 보지 공원 교사도 보지 슬라디 하고서 난 누구 주제 배게셔도 내내다 나도 참 때문에 봐 두서로 셔기도 쓰고 다 드는 셔기도 쓰고 로 어디는 로 샤르스 로 랭게라 다다 풍부 지kho스 다 제우스나 덴제게 다 데르 다 가인스나다 아 가서다 로hen게라 다다 풍부스 지회도 나와도 없이 여봤다 송장스러 델레소
Mhm.
로hen게라스 다당 풍부니디 지콜스러드 지에스러드 개부도 없이 콜스르 디 개부 디 와래 내가 지엔 룸보도서 또 참아 콘소 가서들 나도 수때 대바시면 나 콘소 파티비메 som지 와 콘소 참아 나 수때 대였어 콘소 내레스 내자라레스 내기 요버레스 나인데 참아 콘소 내네 방나 콘소라 지에 또 구매 알았어 다 드레스 집어도 쓰는 거 된다 다고 나와셔 송장 뒤에 뭐 타는 집어도 영망했어요 와 교세기 리스입니다 와 교행게 많이 보디 덴데지 개보다 lum보다 타대도 보지 나와 책이도 돼 얘네양 뒤 타대도 징기 말했어 또 행게 되게 하고도 타대 내가
Dann wird Nangidu in ein Zingyumintus.
네네네 리스 와 쳐왔다 타대 로수 떠보함 쓰라도 타대도 부 저기야 로 남겨봐
Mhm.
얘네양 리스임라 땜밤매 봐 지금 떠밤매 봐 더부지 로 책이도
Mhm.
나대
Mhm.
리스를 때 개부들은 볼 뜨기면 보다 보지
Mhm.
때문에도 저로 책에 두스로 로랭게라 다다 부모니 제거도 나오 순거 두데 디모 타데 바데 로랭게 디긴 정말 로꾼다가 징게를 했다
Dann, wo hatte du Nangidu und Dangimidu?
난게 두스
Nangidu, in ein
고소
Zingyumintus.
내기 요거를 했을라데
Mhm.
라
In ein
고소
Zingyumintus.
징게미 두스데
Mhm.
뭐 타데 지나 같이 그래서 군다처럼 군다
Okay.
랭기 저거 말
In wo hatte du Nangidu?
난게 두스
Tate du Nangidu? In
난게
wo hatte du Nangidu?
뭐 타데
In ein Zingyumintus.
징게미 두스
Okay, cool.
다들 가야 다들 저도 개부 되게 가니까 콘도 내 셔도래 슬라데
Mhm.
콘도 내 셔도래서 나 완전 예된 콘 완전 제배 되겠지 근데 수치 나와 대체가 두스 안 돌아
Okay.
하고
All right, so that's quite a lot here.
음
So let's have a look. Mm, So at the end of page 21, it says, as we express, these are my belongings, whenever our severed finger were in front of us, since we would say, this is my finger, that which is designated as the owning self and the body and mind that we call our property appear to our cognition. And on the occasion of this appearance, it is most likely that this sovereign I does not appear to our awareness as being within the aggregates or the body and mind that are subject to it. So it says here, they do not appear like that. This I appears as more powerful than the dominated body and mind, and as being separately distinct from, or even independent of, the body and mind, and unrelated to them. Although it is said that to a spontaneous cognition, the self and the aggregates appear as master and servant, the great commentary Ocean of Reasoning by Lama Tsongkhapa asserts that they are not grasped as different entities, and so forth. Yeah. So the first thing that is said here is, as we express, these are my belongings. Whenever our severed finger were in front of us, since we would say, this is my finger. 저는 가래 주무디 가래 둠나 양대 원시의 닥시 말에 디네.
되지 뭐
디 원시의 말에 예 디라 샹나 되는 두 이마 디 균도 라비도아.
라고도
되는 배 적으로. So the point here is this. His Holiness is talking about a situation where you would kind of sever your finger, or your finger got severed, and it lies in front of you, and you are, although it is severed from you, you are still referring to it as being your finger. So the interesting thing is that actually it is no longer your finger, and it is no longer your basis of imputation. This finger being cut off from your body it means that it is no longer the basis of imputation. You're no longer related to this finger. This is not your finger. But in reality, we are still referring to it as being my finger. And this shows that we don't have an understanding how this eye actually exists. So it shows that we think that the eye is separate from that finger and unrelated to this finger, so that you can still own it, even if it is separated from you, which is actually not the case. So that's what this part is talking about. Uh, as again, as we express, these are my belongings. Whenever our severed finger were in front of us, since we would still say, "This is my finger," that which is designated as the owning self and the body and mind that we call our property appear to our cognition, and on the occasion of this appearance. So they appear to our cognition in a certain way, and on the occasion of this appearance, it is most likely that this sovereign I does not appear to our awareness as being within the aggregates or the body and mind that are subject to it. So it says here, it does not appear to us as if this I, this powerful I that is in charge, is within in the aggregates. That's what it says here. This I appears as more powerful than the dominated body and mind, and as being separately distinct from, or even independent of the body and mind, and unrelated to them. So then Geshe was talking, because this came before, that you would see yourself as being more powerful than the aggregates. You would see yourself as being the Lord over the aggregates. You would see yourself as being the one who is owning the aggregates, and the aggregates being that you are powerful over. And so now Geshe is actually more talking about a king and his entourage, or his servants, yeah, his subjects. So when it says here that you would feel like that this self is independent, the feeling would be that of a king. A king would feel like that the subjects are dependent on him, but he is not dependent on the subjects. He is over and above the subject. He is not dependent on the subject. The subjects depend on him because he's so powerful and so forth. Yeah? So there is this kind of feeling that this powerful I, that is dominating body and mind, is independent of the body and mind and unrelated to them. And then it says, although it said that to a spontaneous cognition, the self and the aggregates appear as master and servant, the great commentary by Lama Tsongkhapa asserts that they are not grasped as different entities. So a little bit further up, it said that we are actually, it says here, that they appear as being separately distinct from the body and mind. Yeah, so there's in Tibetan, there's the word for different. And now here comes that Lama Tsongkhapa says that they are not grasped as different entities. So Geshe gave the explanation that this I and the aggregates of the body and mind appear as different, but they are not grasped as different entities. If you would grasp them as different entities, you would end up in an intellectually acquired form of grasping for a self. Yeah, but we are talking here about an innate, or what it says, a spontaneous mind. Yeah, not an intellectually acquired misunderstanding, but a spontaneous mind. And so here, Lama Tsongkhapa says that a spontaneous mind does not grasp them as different entities. It's on.
这种
Mhm.
俺都是可吃살다
텐도 티베비는 요 말어.
아,
티베 땅에 요 말어 텐도. 요
야,
요로
야 말해.
요 말어.
다들 막, 단디 라마도 데바도 알리 초신스 데바 조투치다. 대책체. 다디 내 겨왕가진 되겐시 임바 이내양. 겨왕가진 되겐시 임바 이내양. 다 가인스나. 다 가인스나. 겨왕아만에 데려와다 디네 치모 조겐게 다. 로? 다 따셔랑 오신 게 다. 다 딘디기 따셔랑 오신 게 rāngwāchēn kāsā tācā rāngwā wā rā zīngrū chīk yā rēs. Tā pērā shā shabā yī na, nāngbā tāng chībē kī tāwē khyabā tā kāne lē rēs lā dē. Ngā rā sō lē gyōndē kī tēn rā kī bē tā dē midā wā rēs lā rē. Tā nāngbā lā shēn bī chūrū tāṃ chē kī dē tā dē sōl sē tākwa rēs rā. 다 풍부디 돌로 저렇게하나 시셔봐야 그랬어. 누가 다한테 다랑 다 다랑 그랬어. 어디 근데 시행인데다 겨와 가서라 근데 겨와 나치 되겐시 임바이나 겨와 가만 데롱은 근데 심어 저게 다 따져라 완전 주방 지게 제로치 대 대신 다 랑게토베 제 주변 제로치
Mhm.
랑게토베 제로치 그러와
Mhm.
랑게토베 제로치 어디를 용도 없어 대나 나세 시다 이와처럼 가사 공부도 천이 뮤트뭐 랑게 원스 바스 치기도
Mhm.
텔레드네 셴베 가사 랑게도 진우치도 그러와 니데 다 가르쳐 그랬으나 아 가사 따지 랑아지 주번 집어세데 타치도 군다이 뭐지
Mhm.
가사 랑게도 제 주번 집어세데 나와봐 가사 공부도 천이 뮤트뭐 진주치도 랑게 원
Mhm.
진주치도
Mhm.
대한 군다이 뭐지
Alles klar.
델을 신다 간사 랑게도 진루시 용도 델 행게레스다
Mhm.
데 참말에 야레스 행게레스 어 치몬들 행게 장게 소데데다
Dann nur Lengi-Jöres und Günergi-Jöres.
군다스레 체이 무두번즈번ズバ더라 나마 가인서 따저로 어저 두번즈번ズバ샤라바
Okay.
치몬 랑게도 제이 두번즈번ズバ샤라바
Mhm.
대니게드네 나마도 군다레 치모델라 군다들 행인이 시그레스
Alles klar.
도세 니 여자
Mhm.
나셔도 따져로 어저ズバ도 군다 니레 행게 샤서 면샤 어디래
Okay. All right. And then it says. So after what Lamus and Kappa says here in this great commentary, it says if we analyze in detail among those who accept rebirths, there is a mode of grasping the self as permanent, unitary, and autonomous, and which, coming from a past existence, moves towards a future existence. Yeah, so let's talk first about this here. So this is actually the dividing line between a Buddhist view and a non-Buddhist view, or an outsider view. That is that with regard to this self that is engaging or that is doing these actions of which we talk about the cause and effect of actions. So these actions are done by a self that the self is described or is held by the non-Buddhist as being a permanent self. While the Buddhists are talking, all Buddhists are talking about an impermanent self, all the different philosophical schools accept an impermanent self. So, so that's the one of the dividing lines between a Buddhist view and a non-Buddhist view. So a non-Buddhist would hold that the self, so in many systems this is referred to as a soul, that this would be permanent. And because of that, one would also, so we're talking here about, especially about systems that are accepting rebirth. They would say that the self that goes from one rebirth to another rebirth, from one life to another, is a permanent self and is therefore going from one life to another as if it is changing clothes. It lays down the old aggregates and puts on the new aggregates. It's like it's changing clothes, yeah? And the self itself is permanent. So Buddhists already do not accept that level. So they all accept an impermanent self. So it says here, therefore, that you can have when you're somebody who accepts rebirth, there is first of all that mode that you grasp at the self as permanent, unity, and autonomous, which, coming from a past existence, moves toward a future existence. Similarly, there is a mode of grasping, which is a different one, a different mode of grasping self as self-sufficient and substantial. Yeah. So this is two things. One time you grasp the self for to be permanent, unity, and autonomous, and time you grasp it as self-sufficient and substantial. If this is further finely subdivided, there is a mode of grasping where self-sufficiency does not share the characteristics of the aggregates. Yeah, so that means the self does not share the characteristics of the aggregates. It is self-sufficient, and there is another mode of grasping the self-sufficient person. Of these two, the first is merely acquired. So the first here is referring to grasping the self as permanent, unitary, and autonomous. So this is only an intellectually acquired view of grasping at a self. Has no spontaneous or no inherent graspings in this way. This is only an acquired form, and And then it says, while the second constitutes an innate grasp, constitutes, so it says here, while the second constitutes an innate grasping, actually it says like the second has also an inherent grasping. Rangya tuba tsesu yuba di kare tambo di kare
군다레스.
Gündaris, niba di lingeris. So the point is this, again, of these two, the first is referring to grasping the self as being permanent, unitary, and autonomous. This kind of grasping, has only intellectually acquired forms. The second one is grasping the self as being self-sufficient and substantial. This one has two forms. One of them is only intellectually acquired. The other one also has spontaneous forms. So when you see here, then this grasping the self as self-sufficient, substantial has been divided into two. There is a mode of grasping where self-sufficiency does not share the characteristics of the aggregates. This one is only intellectually acquired. And then there is another mode of grasping a self-sufficient person. That one is an innate grasping or a spontaneous grasping. Yeah. So that's what this means. Maybe the sentence has to be a little bit adapted. And it says the aforementioned grasping of permanent unitary and autonomous self is not posited as innate, but only acquired.
다도 상다체, 봐? 나도 그렇지도. 다된다 가인스나. 단다 남조 간사스 차야들라더나. 저외기 간사스데 타인기 따바 점치래. 풍보라 때는 따바스라고도. 심줄라 때는 따바스라고도. 된다 더시 풍봉가에 된도 간사드 자간도다매. 풍부 수그 풍부 된도 나라서 단다 감가시네 대대로 전에매 어디니 남셔지는 감투들 전에 녀매 매바데 갈등게로서라도 간사도 따도 전에 니좀 메스 다 쳐인 버래 간사 따도 전에 니좀 메스게 간사데 레 군데게 땡도 줘베 와 렌데게 땡도 줘베 나한테 스케시겨래 렌데게 땡도 줘베 나한테다 가인스나 요래 나도 대시도 대대원 대외시도 도 나도 배제 지금 동에서 이시도 나도 깔래 대위였다. 사마데레 나 대원도 나 동에 메주세리 내주디 나도 요랬다. 여자 세가 도는 예였다.
Because we come to the end of this session, time is running out. Geshe says, like, so that in a nutshell, what this is saying here is the self exists as something that is merely imputed on the five aggregates. But if you look for the self amongst the five aggregates, you will not find anything. Yeah, so you can either try to find it within the aggregate, which is one way of saying the body. So if you look within the body, you will look for it by way of going through the five constituents or the five elements, and you will not find it in any of these five, in any one of these five elements. And then when you are trying to find it in the consciousness, which is the sixth constituent, then you will find out that also in the sixth constituent you cannot find it. So the self or the I is imputed on the six constituents, but in any of them you cannot find it. So to put this in another phrasing or technical terms, if you look for the imputed meaning, you will not find anything. You will not receive anything. You will not get a result from looking for the imputed meaning. And so we are talking about this because we try to understand how this self exists, this self, which is the very one that brings forth actions that then are causes for certain results. Yeah, so that's why we're interested in the self, yeah, because it's the one who does these actions. And this kind of self exists. Yeah. So we cannot find it when we look for it, but it does exist because for the sake of that very self, we try to avoid non-virtue and we try to engage in virtue because we want to have the result of not us or that self not having to suffer and instead to experience happiness and satisfying experiences. So there is no doubt that this self exists. It just doesn't exist findable when you look for it amongst the aggregates.
아야 나도 쎄. 다 되게 나는 치료백인 더바다 가려서 다 봐. 다시랑 뭐지 다 시키는 식도. 다 낭배 중대 되게 나와라. 란게트베 제이드 두번 집은 짐바스지 다 지회도 분집었어. 지회도 그것도 분집들이 니여시. 다다 공부 생이 미투만 생긴 시다. 야 란게트베 제이드 두번 집은 짐바시 니여시 다.
라, como son?
란게트베 제이드 두번 짐바들이 니샤.
Mhm.
다다 공부 지회도 뭐.
Mhm.
근데 뭐 타들이 번진된 식다. 다다 공부 지회도 난장 드네 가서라 란게 투바 진행의 시 뭐다든 좀 많이 봐서 어디니지다 뒤집는다고 니 중송스 하고서니
In Nangbe Dötze die Rede.
오늘 뭐 뒤집대다
Namba Kashi Kari Tangbo die Dügidu.
당고 그 니가 어디 두고도 나바 카실라 다당 풍부 란게와 생임이 좀봐 뭐다들 요번 생gen식 남바 도스 하고서 남과 드리시도스 이제 따져로 완전히 다 되게 남과 민도스 다.
Okay, cool. So Denkeshe says, with regard to non-Buddhist schools, they will talk about a permanent self, and this self they will present as being permanent, unitary, and autonomous. Yeah, to keep with the vocabulary that we have in the translation. So this is a position or a teaching that is only held by non-Buddhists, yeah, non-Buddhist philosophers. Buddhists don't hold that. Yeah, first of all, they do not accept the permanent self. Yeah, so they would have an impermanent self. But die Hakumasung, die Nangba tenzu kare ranga tu betsesu yube da killing yube kare.
킬랑의 도스 남바.
Ni tenzu kagni tenzu ni rela kare ni chungwa.
다저는 남바 란게도 제이즈 두고 다 킬랑의 남바지 도스. 그래서 따져로 완전히 다 킬랑의 남바 민도스.
Okay, so then Geshe says, amongst the Buddhists, what you will find, there is some Buddhists that would accept that there is a self that is self-sufficient, substantially existent. There is some Buddhists that are like this, but there is no Buddhist that would accept that there is a self that is permanent, unitary, and autonomous.
그래서 간이 줘서 질 행계르지. 행계디 몇 삼월이다. 잘해다 집어서 이렇게 삼월 심지 던져다 예. 군다시도 와스. 군다데 켈랑게 남바 예스.
So I was a bit confused because our text was talking about two types of grasping for a self-sufficient, substantially existent self. And actually, this is the opposite of refutation. So in what way do the Buddhists accept that? So the point was this. Our text is talking about that there's two types of grasping for a self-sufficient, substantially existent. And the first one was grasping at something that is kind of a separate entity, and that where what was he saying? Where it says that the self is self-sufficient such that it does not share the characteristics of the aggregates and so forth. Yeah, so that is a kind of a qualified form, and this is an intellectually acquired grasping for a self-sufficient, substantially existent self, and there is some Buddhists who hold that. Yeah. That's what I understand from Geshe-la. The second one, which is also a grasping for a self-sufficient person, is called here. There is another mode of grasping, and this other mode of grasping for a self-sufficient person is something that is spontaneous or innate. Yeah, and so this is something that is not held by somebody. This is something that we all share. This is what is actually appearing in our mind. Yeah. So this is an innate grasping. It has nothing to do with any kind of school. But it seems like the Geshe is saying that the first grasping, the self-sufficient substantial existent self that is mentioned here, is actually first of all, it has only innate or only intellectually acquired forms, and it seems like Geshe is saying there is some Buddhists who hold that intellectually acquired view. Yeah. But no Buddhist would hold the first one here, which is grasping for a self that is permanent, unity, and autonomous.
다들 군다는 술을 열어서 남아 술을 열어서라나 제라마에는 남아 보가스도 열었다나
So,
제라마에서 차시 찍는 거 열었어 스톤들이
so then, of course, the question comes like, so who amongst the Buddhists would have this kind of view? Who would have this kind of first view? Means like holding that there is a self that is self-sufficient, substantially existent in that way. Yeah, that it is not sharing the characteristics of the aggregates. Who amongst the Buddhists would do that? Yeah, it's kind of a surprise. And so, indeed, within the Vaibhashikas, there's a subsection. I think they are called the Vatsiputriyas. And these Vatsiputriyas, they seem to hold something like that. And this is something that they hold. So it is an intellectually acquired view.
야단 들이대시긴 두수 조성스다 다단데 니 남샤디 제만 많고 되는 거랬어 제가 제만 세고 샤요 그랬어 봐 근데 나 숨불 아 하장 개침불에 따외 걸 두기도 저 개침불에 양이 용거랬던 세고 샤 그랬어
So Geshe says he leaves it at that for today because we utterly run out of time. But he just wants to say what was presented here is something that will be explained again and again as we proceed in the text. It is something of great importance. It's very, very important. It is all about views and appearances and so forth. So this is totally a total central topic, and it will be explained again and again, and will therefore also become clearer and clearer as we move along.
Okay. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Geshe-la.
Thank you very much.
See you, Tatin. And thank you all the translators.
Muchas gracias.
Merci.
Rafa
Merci,
and
merci.
Salomina, thank you, everybody.
Merci beaucoup.
자주 생존은 것이 마개바나 개바냥바 매바야 언내 공도 배워 또 가리라와 그런 생각수 편한다고 제라스와 오케이.
Thank
Merci
you very
beaucoup.
much.
Bonsoir.
Buonasera. Buonasera.
Buonasera, buonasera.